It's been that kind of 6 months. Writing a sequel has just been a really weird experience. I went into it feeling confident because in my head I was just like, you have already done this once, so how hard could it be to just do the same thing again, but different? Obviously, the first time you do anything, it's a massive learning process. I definitely had the expectation it was going to be much easier than writing book 1, which I had a pretty rough time. I was going to be so much more efficient this time because I would obviously have a clue what I was doing. What I didn't expect, though, was the level of pressure. When I wrote my first novel in 2020, I had 0 expectations for myself. Last year for NaNoWriMo 2021, I didn't have a whole load of expectations either. This is kind of awkward because I don't know how to say this without it sounding like a humble brag. My writing group has already memed the hell out of me for this. What I ended up with apparently was a book that people somehow actually like and are really looking forward to the sequel. I was actually on a Skype call with my cousin and he was just like, Deb, if you up the sequel, I will be so pissed. Okay then, no pressure. Jokes, but also not really. So that was unexpected. I feel like the pressure for the second book is so much more real. I mean, the pressure is there with the first book. If I didn't make sure that the first book was good, there was no chance that they were ever gonna give me another shot. Everybody knows it's your debut, so they cut you a little bit of slack. But for that second book, you're no longer new at this thing. You're supposed to know what you're doing. I actually feel kind of like a character in a fantasy novel who's just been told that they did magic. I have no idea what I did. I can see the result of what I did. I remember living through the experience of doing the thing. There is all the live stream footage here to prove that it was me. I don't know how I did it. It feels like it was something that happened to somebody else, and I don't know how to do it again. I just kind of had this moment of sheer panic. I don't like to put out subpar work. Other part of it, of course, was the financial pressure. I am very fortunate because I had a very well-paying corporate job. I have a reasonable amount of financial safety cushion, but at the same time, even though I know that I have saved for this, I have anticipated this, I have planned for this, it's still very stressful looking at the bank account and just seeing the bank account balance go down. It has been so hard to just sit here and not freak out about the fact that I feel like everything I'm writing is just absolute trash and it's terrible, and that I have no clue how to string a sentence together, and I have no understanding of plot, no ability to develop characters and to give them fulfilling arcs, and just focus on writing the draft. I keep panicking that I should be spending all my time doing promo, doing marketing, pushing my books, trying to get sales to happen, because if I don't drive traffic to those product pages, I don't get sales, and if I don't get sales, I don't get money coming into the bank account. It's been 2 years since I quit my corporate job. Yeah, it is very uncomfortable. While I have done my best to keep my costs as low as I can without compromising the quality of what I am publishing, it's still taking a very long time to earn back that initial investment. And I will do an update video on where I am with that. For now, suffice to say that overall, we are not cash flow positive yet. And even though I planned for this, my brain's just like, I don't care. I'm gonna freak out about this anyway. One thing I have learned this year though is that publishing that next book is so important. It is actually the most important thing any self-published author can be doing. The bump to your backlist from having a new frontlist book, it's real. It didn't really click for me until I could see it happening with my second kids book in my Ingram Spark and KDP dashboards. And so for the last 6 months, I have done my best to try and shut up that voice in the back of my head that's screaming at me that I should be working on promo and that I should be on social media and I should be networking and all that stuff, and just focus on writing the best sequel that I possibly can. Going into book 2, I did have a plan, because of course I have a plan. But my plan relied on a couple of key assumptions. So my goal right now is to try and finish doing the rough draft of book 2 by the end of August. Number 1, that I understood my own creative process. Brandon Sanderson's methods have been working really well for me, so I'm going to keep on going with them. Number 2, that I knew what the book was actually going to be about. The thing that will be new this time is I do have 2 storylines planned. Since Brandon Sanderson outlines his plot, but actually Discovery writes his characters, he actually writes each storyline all the way through from start to finish. That's when he starts trying to work out how to interleave all of the different chapters together. I wouldn't have thought of doing that. There is something that I really like about this idea of writing one POV all the way through from beginning to end so that you really get a cohesive sense of the character's emotional journey. And so I'm going to try that. Number 3, that I would have a reasonable word count. When I was outlining the book, I was planning for both storylines to be roughly equal in length, but at the moment I'm feeling like it's probably gonna be 80,000 words for the main storyline and maybe 40,000 words for the second storyline, which feels very short. Feels a lot shorter compared to what I had originally intended it to be, but I mean, it's still a decent novella length. My other worry is that I will have once again severely underscoped how long this book is going to be. Last time I had a good ending point to split the book. This time I really don't. This time the whole plot as conceived needs to happen in one book for it to be satisfactory. So if this ends up letting out to 200,000 words, then I'm really screwed because 200,000 words is just not commercially feasible. And I honestly thought these were reasonable assumptions to make because I was basing it off of real data. In theory, that should be very achievable because I do write at roughly 400 words per hour when I write new prose, and I did get almost 92,000 words in when I attempted Nano last year. So 120,000 words over 2 months should be eminently achievable. And I did actually adjust my assumptions this time for the changes in our home life due to my daughter starting school and not having daycare. There's no way I can write 6 to 8 hours a day like I was doing last year in November. I'm kind of hoping to offset that somewhat by writing more words per hour because this time I do actually have a completed book level outline. And because I was feeling all that pressure and because I also had this conception in my head that everything I did last time was quite inefficient and therefore I should be able to optimize it a bit more, I decided I was going to invest more time upfront in doing some planning. And in theory, that should lead to a more efficient process. But what ended up happening was the more time I gave myself, the more planning I ended up doing. And the more planning I ended up doing, the more overthinking I did. And therefore, everything just became more complicated until I got to the point where I was just like, I don't even understand what I am doing anymore. I need more time to figure out what I am doing. And it just became this vicious cycle that I only broke because I was just like, come hell or high water, on 1 July, I am going to be starting new prose. And it really did not go well. It turns out every single assumption that I had about this plan was completely wrong. I was trying so hard to do this right. And I just couldn't understand why I was having so much trouble with putting words down on the page. I don't think I've ever been quite so down on myself during my writing process. There were some low points when I was writing book 1 where I had no idea where to go next. And now that I think about it, the point that I got stuck was during the part of the story arc that is this book. So I don't know, maybe that explains quite a lot. During book 1, I never had the urge to actually throw out all of the writing that I had done so far. And yet for this book, not only did I throw away the first 20,000 words and decided that the whole story was trash and I needed to start all over again, I had that same feeling that something in the story was fundamentally broken so many times that I have wanted to throw everything out and just start over at least 4 or 5 times. And because I had decided to tackle a more complicated plot, I felt like I had to keep outlining the end again and again and again and again, and I must have outlined that ending at least half a dozen times, every single one of them slightly differently. I just knew things were not working, and I had to try really hard to just be like, what would Brandon Sanderson do? What would Will White do? In both those cases, I knew the answer. Brandon Sanderson would pretend he had already made the revisions that he needed to make to the earlier chapters, and he would just keep going as if those revisions were already there. Will White would say to keep going because you do not have a story and you have no clue what the story is until you actually get to the end. That's what I tried to do. Nothing was clicking for me until I went and had a look at the AMA that Naomi Novik was doing over on Reddit. People kept asking her, like, how did you plan this, or how did you come up with this idea, or what would happen, like, if this and this happened in the books, or what happened after the ending. And it was just such a relief to see her say over and over again, I don't know. I won't know until I write it, if I ever write it. That led me down a rabbit hole of having a look at the past AMAs she's done, and I found a post where she was talking about what her writing process was like. And I was sitting there reading her answer and just going, this is how I write. This is exactly how I write. This explains so much about why I find it impossible to stick to an outline like ever. And that realization gave me the courage to just throw away the outline, not stress about it, and just be like, you know what? I'm just gonna sit here and write words and just, I can't even say this with a straight face because I'm just like, oh, it's so ridiculous. This is how I actually made it to the end. This is just like the most artist thing ever. I just, I'm seriously dying a little inside to realize that I legit vibed my way to the end of my second book, but it is done. There are a ton of placeholders in here. Obviously, revisions are the next thing, and I'm kind of putting those off because I need a little more distance from this draft. Some days I wake up and I'm still like, it's still trash. The ending is absolute shit. I don't want to publish this. I feel like people are going to hate it. In the meantime, I have actually written the text for my third kids book. Between now and the end of the year, I want to have finished the English rhymes for the third kids book, as well as the storyboarding of the illustrations, after which I will hopefully have a little bit of time to go back to start revisions on this book. That'll take me through into the new year, at which point I can start getting my beta reads organized, and while that's happening, I will hopefully be able to do all of the illustrations for my kids book. She says, knowing that the illustrations take the longest time. The illustrations, I swear, are going to take me like 3 months to do. Maybe I can magically find a more efficient way to do the illustrations, seeing how I totally failed at finding a more efficient way of writing a prose novel. I am absolutely not going to hit my Q1 target for a publication date. Fingers crossed I can get it before May, just so I can say that I am actually publishing one book a year per pen name. Then I'm going to start this process again. After the kids book, I will then move on to the third fantasy novel. But I think I'm going to embrace the chaos for that one, the Naomi Novik approach. Sit down, write a line, keep going until I get to the end.